It is November the 30th, 9 p.m. on the East Coast. We have a first-time guest standing by. We are recording, and we are streaming live. We have a chat room waiting. So let's begin our countdown to Studio 10. Well, good evening. Hey, welcome to pjnet.tv. And behind me, back here, we're going to give away who our guest is. Now, I need to take this time because I want to tell you, you are going to enjoy this woman, not only for what she's written, but for her relationship with the Lord, and you're gonna love it. Now, because you're gonna love it, I want you to know this is all Barbara. Okay, I didn't have anything to do with this. Barbara found this story, and it's all on her. And I just want to say thank you to Barbara because she does a great job. Okay, so who am I talking about? Well, Tamera Alexander is standing by, and in the great state of Tennessee, I believe, is where you're at.
That is correct. Hello, Mark. How are you?
Oh, just can't wait to dive in, take a deep dive. Let's go through some of the pleasantries or the set the stage a little bit. Your writing was inspired late in life by your mother-in-law?
It was, yeah. My mother-in-law gave me a book, and of course I took one look at it and thought, I'm not going to be interested in this. And we're not supposed to judge a book by its cover. Mm-hmm. And yet we do. I shelved it, and she came back a couple of times and asked me, have you read it? And I said, no, but I will. Well, one day we got a call, probably it wasn't even 5 months after that, after she gave me the book. And Claudette had died very suddenly of a brain aneurysm at age 58. Which would just devastated us. We always knew that she would be the one to outlive all of the other parents, but God had different designs and took her home earlier than we thought. But move ahead a matter of weeks, and I ran across that book, Love Comes Softly by Jeanette Oak. And I sat down, Mark, and read it cover to cover, loved it. And that started me on my journey of reading Christian fiction.
But reading and writing are two different things, Tamera.
It is. Move ahead again. And I'll have to say, I was going to say move ahead again a couple of years, but I have to say that this is back in late 90s, early 2000. And there was not nearly as much Christian fiction as there is today. I mean, we're talking maybe two shelves. Mm-hmm. And it was interesting. Joe and I were coming back from Texas one night. I finished a Christian novel, tossed it in the back seat, and just joking, I said, I think I could write one of those. And he said, well, why don't you? And we've always been slightly competitive, Joe and I. So I said, well, all right, I will, not knowing what on earth I was doing. I had no clue what I was doing. So, like Snoopy on his doghouse, it was a dark and stormy night, a shot rang out. And I just, so I just started writing, but then God in his grace and his kindness sent people, and mainly an organization into my life, American Christian Fiction Writers, where I networked and made some wonderful relationships, and really God honed my writing, what raw skill maybe there was there, what little there was, and honed it, and then really helped me to network with people, and basically just gave me opportunities to learn. And it's been that was early 2000s. My first book came out in 2006, my first two books. So here we are, about 15 years later.
Now, what vast professional experience were you drawing upon to write these books?
I was waiting for the joke. Vast professional experience. Well, I did work for a while in the professional psychology division at a college in northern Colorado, which did help in many fun ways. Oh. But truly, my very first book was about marriage and what God says about marriage, about how a man is supposed to love a woman like Christ loves the church, and a woman is to respect and to love her husband. So the book morphed into that story, and that book is called Rekindled. And it's about a man learning to love his wife like that, and also a woman learning to love her husband for who he is not for who she wants him to be. We as women tend to like to fix things. We like projects. And to learn to love our men for who they are, and then let God do the changing instead of us, nudging along.
Can you talk to my wife? Can you?
Hello? Yeah.
She probably wants you to talk to me.
I'm sure.
Did you major in psychology?
I did not. I took a few classes, but no, I did not.
Now, I majored in psychology at the
Did you?
Yeah, the People's Republic
Okay.
of Florida State University.
There we go.
It's quite the experience.
Yeah.
I want to get into, I could write a book if I were a writer on some of the circumstances around the release or lack thereof, or the delay therein of your recent book. Now, we'll talk more about the book specifically later, but there is a heck of a story that really drew me in, because I am so proud of you. So proud of you. Tell us what happened.
Thank you. Well, Colors of Truth is my 17th novel. The first 7 were Colorado territory. My husband and I lived for 17 plus years in Colorado. So write, what you know and what you've experienced, and every place I write about, I've been and lived and all that. My last 10 have been Southern fiction, and Colors of Truth is the 3rd novel in the Carnton series, which Carnton is a place here in Nashville, specifically Franklin, Tennessee, where, if you know the history, it's basically where the Civil War really ended. It was on November 30th of 1864. The very first book, Christmas at Carnton, it was really a prequel. We kind of count it, as a pre-book. It's really not book 1 because it's a shorter novella. So that introduced the series. And then book 1 was actually opens 5 hours before the Battle of Franklin, which was the deciding battle in the theater, in the final theater that was in the Civil War at that time. And then, so that's the Battle of Franklin book, as my former publisher calls it. And then the second book is Colors of Carnton, and is about the cemetery. The McGavock Cemetery at Carnton is the largest privately owned Civil War cemetery in the nation. And on that night of November the 30th, in a town of 750 people in Franklin, Tennessee, you had 20,000 federal soldiers and 20,000 rebel soldiers. And they are coming. I mean, can you fathom, in a town of 750? When the sun rose that morning, you had close to 10,000 casualties and dead. Well, during the night, the Federals, the Northern Army, had moved on to Nashville. So at daybreak, they hastily buried their dead, and then moved on, to Nashville in pursuit of Thomas and Schofield and the other generals and their troops. So what was left now is they are having to bury all of these soldiers before they leave. They hastily bury them. So Colors of Truth takes place about a year later. So we're November 30th of 1864. Move ahead now. It's a year after the Civil War, so we're spring of 1866. And you can imagine a field where the soldiers were hastily buried about 2 feet deep, two men per hole, if you will, or grave, and very shallow graves. You can imagine, with all the snow and the snow melt and the ground shifting, you can imagine what that field looked like. And that's how, in chapter 1 of Colors of Truth, that's how the book opens. And something has to be done about that situation. So Colors of Truth is about the origin of that cemetery, but it's also about the counterfeit money in America at that time. A lot of people, realized that America was on the brink as far as, the death of so many men in the country, and the devastation of cities. But they don't realize sometimes that it was either a third to a half, historians say, of the money, of the currency in circulation was counterfeit. It was counterfeit. It wasn't real.
The U.S. dollars.
The U.S. dollar, right? It was counterfeit. So the U.S. government, in fact, it was President Abraham Lincoln on his, there was a certain day he was headed out of the office to an event that evening, and there was legislation that came upon his desk, and it was for the United States Secret Service, which was never intended at that point of its origin to to stand guard, if you will, for the
Mm-hmm.
president, and
Mm-hmm.
to protect him. It was to seek out counterfeiters. So
Really?
President Lincoln, that was the very last piece of legislation that he signed before he headed to Ford's Theater,
Well,
and
if
that
they
was
were,
his.
yeah, I was going to say, if they were commissioned for their current duties,
Right, right.
maybe things would have turned out a little different. But
They would have turned out a little bit, yeah, a little bit differently. So,
Tamara, the
and then, yeah, go ahead.
well, I don't want to break your momentum. I've got my
No,
thought. Go ahead.
no, you're good. And then I was just say, and then the last thing with the book, the last is I love on the front of the book, who we see there is two Irish sisters who come looking for their brother. So that's the whole crux of the book. And their brother, if you read the back cover copy, has sent them some money, and which has allowed these two sisters, which are the last of their family, those two and their brother, the last of their family that's left. So you have Wyatt, who is the Secret Service agent, and of course this Irish sister who comes over with money that her brother has sent her, and then you have this the theme of the cemetery, and all of this book, Mark, deals with lies. It deals with lies we tell ourselves, lies we tell others, and lies we even try to tell to God. But, as I always tell people, good luck with that last one. So God had led me through all of this. So I set this up saying God had led me through this story, and he always meets me on the page when I write. Always, always, always. Writing is a form of worship for me. And sometimes I even pull up an empty chair. I keep an empty chair over here. And some mornings I will just pull it up just to remind myself and to remember who I'm writing for. I'm writing for an audience of one. But you can imagine then, all right, with this setup, God has brought me through this story. I've written it. The story has already been approved. I've already been paid, if you will, for the
Mm-hmm.
story. It's already been printed. Thousands of copies are ready to be shipped. And then I get a call. So I'm not sure if you want me to dive in here or not.
We got to be careful with time. We got 8 minutes, but
Okay.
no, please, because this is what drew. There's several things that drew me in, but no,
Sure.
you had to make the call.
And I'll just tell you very, very quickly. I got a call, and at first my publisher had decided to delay the book because if you'll remember back earlier this year, 2020 has been a year, and all of the Confederate statues, a lot of them were being defaced, a lot of riots and all that stuff centering around the Civil War and that history. So they thought it would be best to delay the book and then move ahead about 8 weeks. And then I got a call, and they asked me to make major changes to the book in light of the 21st century and the world in which we're living now. Bottom line, Mark, there were changes that would have changed the history that I've written and what is the real history of our country. They were wanting me to give agency to people who, 6 months after the Civil War, did not have agency yet. They did not have that right. And I'm writing about real people in this book. You have to remember, Carnton is a real place. The McGavics are real people, and specifically Tempe, who is the cook in the story, is based on the real African-American woman, former slave after the Civil War, a freed woman who lived. And I could not take her struggle away from her. And it felt like to me, I would have been removing her real history if I'd done that. So I said no. And I thought, we would be able to find a way, to maneuver our way through this somehow. I mean, after all, the first two books, same setting, same characters, same everything. And yet they said no. And then they let me know they were canceling not only Colors of Truth, but the third book that I was contracted for too. So, that was a bit of a shock. But, I love what Chuck Swindoll says, that God never leans over the balcony of heaven and gasps. He always knows what's coming. He's never surprised. And God, one of my favorite books in the Old Testament, and I love the Old Testament, is Deuteronomy. And in Deuteronomy chapter 1, I love, love, love what Moses says about how God is going to guide them as a father, and he always looks for the best places to camp. It says he goes before them looking for the best places to camp. And I had just read that in my personal study, and I just felt the Lord saying over and over, I've got this. I've got this. And of course, I'm thinking,
Well,
I'm feeling like I'm just going to go
yeah. Hmm.
off the breath, but God's got it, and he does.
There are, Tamara, I'm blown away. Honestly, there aren't many people who would dig in. See, that your publisher caved in to social justice pressure, but you didn't. Facts are facts. Good, bad, whether we like them or dislike them, we need to do. Anyway, I'm just really, really proud of you. The thing, by the way, I have some Confederate paper currency or
Ooh.
whatever.
Right.
And
It's
if
probably worth more now than it was
well,
then. So.
well, I'm going to tell you what it says on the front. Basically, is that this is a worthless piece of paper, but in the 6 months after the successful conclusion of the Confederate victory, a peace treaty signed, it would then be worth its face value.
Right.
It was worthless from the beginning. Never, interesting. I mean, just it was totally worthless.
And Mark, look at that. That was a lie. It was a lie. It was a lie. And it's just amazing. But part of the reason, and thank you for saying that you were proud of me, but honestly, God had led me through so much over the past year that I look back, how hindsight, you look back and you think, oh, I didn't realize at the time what he was leading me through. But in that moment, I was it's almost just like just little, not really epiphanies, but he just reminded me then of, I know now why you took me through that. You were prepping me for this, so that I would have the courage and I would have the trust in you to know that, okay, well, there's that contract gone. But that he would open other doors.
Yeah, it worked out, didn't it? Another thing that really blew me away. We were talking off the air earlier, folks. It is my duty to do a certain amount of research on our new guest, because I have to introduce them and have to talk to them,
You have to act like you like them. So.
Right, or something, yeah. Act like they're entertaining and interesting,
Exactly.
But so it's normally a routine. I'm not saying I hate it, but it's routine. It's just a routine part of the job. But I got caught up in some of the stuff on your website, which I'll put on the screen now, including a YouTube video that my mouse has decided to. Wow. Uh-oh. We got problems now.
Uh-oh.
I don't know how we're going to do this. My mouse battery's dead. Okay, but anyway, I'll fix it. I got batteries right over there.
No worries.
Somehow,
no worries.
This thing messed up this morning, but the battery. All right. Well,
that is okay.
Okay. But you produced a video on the history of that residence. And I was amazed. It's not uncommon, for during war times to basically commandeer a residence. Right. And they turned it into a hospital, and it was jam-packed. And what stopped my heart, I still get chills. The floors to this day are still stained with the blood of those Confederate soldiers.
Absolutely.
Unbelievable.
Yes, it really is. And on the main floor, the main floors have been buffed free, and the blood has come out. It has buffed the blood out. But because that buffer, that machine, this is in the 1950s, it was so heavy they could not get it upstairs. And I thank God they could not, because that's a living memory, not only to those men who died there, but what we went through as a country. And I pray every time I look at that blood, I pray, especially in such years as this one, and with people talking about, and there's so much, division and strife. And I think let's not forget what we've been through. And let's not go down that road before, that those who have gone before us have gone down. So, but yeah, the blood is still there, and it is. If you're ever in Franklin and have an opportunity to go see Carnton, I would encourage you to. And you can walk the cemetery, and every soldier that's in the book, that's in with this pledge in the Battle of Franklin book, as we call it, is real and based on a real soldier. You can even see a lot of their graves, the ones in the book who did end up passing on. You can see there and walk that
Keep
hallowed
talking.
ground.
I'm going to go get a battery.
Okay, you
Keep talking.
betcha.
I got to
worries.
trust you. I can't hear you now. Okay.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. But yeah, with this pledge, and just the history of Carnton in general, guys, has just it's blessed me personally, and it's given me a deeper love for our country. And I know readers have asked, and back in 2018, we did a Southern Mansion Reader Weekend in November of 2018. And I am really, really hoping to do another one in 2021. We had thought about doing a Southern Mansion Reader Weekend, the second one in 2020. So glad we did not plan on that, because boy, this year has turned out to be a real humdinger. But anyway, so hopefully in 2021. And what a Southern Mansion Reader Weekend is we do dinner at Belmont, breakfast at Belmead, and dinner at Carnton on a Friday and Saturday. And we tour the mansions, we tour the grounds, we talk about the history. I bring curators and historians in who helped me write the books. I could not write these books with the historical accuracy that they have without the curators and the historians. It has been one of the biggest blessings of my life to partner with these historians.
Well, I've never had to leave a guest.
That's okay. My husband would tell you, Mark, if you have to leave someone talking, just leave. Leave Tamera. She's fine. I could talk to a log.
Barbara can tell you, I have plenty of batteries, but anyway. Okay. Well,
No
darn it,
worries.
we ran out of time.
That's okay.
Gosh, where do we?
No worries.
Okay, we did the YouTube video. You talked about your Colors of Truth, the story up to the republishing of. Okay, good.
Right.
Folks, it is a rare treat for us to have a guest like Tamera. And I don't know if I put her website up here because my mouse quit working, so I'm just going to hit all the buttons. And you can go to tameraalexander.com, and you can find some of the links that we're talking about, the YouTube videos. And Barbara's probably put it in the chat room anyway, just in case. So, but Tamera, thank you for sharing your story on the story, and thank you let me ask you this: sell me on this Christian fiction, because a lot of Christian fiction writers basically feign clean fiction for Christian fiction, but you take it a little more serious. Why do you so confidently say this is Christian fiction?
Because I am a Christian and I am a follower of Christ. So everything I write is written from the Christian world view. And does that mean that you're going to, hear a sermon when you read my books? Nope. I save that for Sunday morning. If you want to hear a sermon, go to church. But what I do is I weave the hope and the truth, specifically in Colors of Truth. There's a lot of truth and a lot about lies in that book. And a lot about authenticity and our faith in God. And again, whatever God has led me through in that moment or that season makes its way to the page. It really does. And He just meets me on the page. Writing is like I said, a form of worship and a journey for me, and it draws me closer to Him. And I love sharing these truths. And if I could leave anything with your readers, with your viewers tonight, and with my readers, I would say, whatever situation you're in, know that our Lord God is sovereign, and He is going before you looking for the best places to camp. So be encouraged no matter where you are.
It's been a pleasure, Tamera. Thank you for sharing. I'm just so moved, and it's been a great 20 minutes, and we hope that we can do this again and again, because you're the real deal. We appreciate you.
Thank you. God bless. Thank you.
Tamera Alexander. Hey, the view from the top of the Eagle's Nest. There you see it where the broadcast originates. But folks, as good as that was, it's nowhere near over. At the bottom of the hour, we will have Casper Stockham from the great state of Colorado coming our way. Before then, I got a lot of work to do. So don't touch that dial. We'll be back in a few minutes. Before I leave, I'd like to ask you to challenge yourself with 2 questions. First, what is the boldest thing that you've ever done for Jesus Christ? Maybe tell a book publisher to take a hike, maybe. Question number 2, how long ago was that? I hope that none of us will ever be satisfied with our answers to either of those 2 questions.